Welcome to you all to this virtual meeting of North Tyneside Council's Overview, Scrutiny and Policy Development Committee, and following the introduction of regulations to allow remote meetings in the light of the current coronavirus pandemic. My name is Councillor Sandra Graham and I'm the chair of this committee. I'd like to inform everyone that this meeting is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel to enable the public to observe the proceedings, and I welcome anyone who is watching from home. Before we move on to the agenda, I'd like to make it clear who's participating in this meeting tonight and how we intend that the meeting will be conducted. In order to check who is here at the meeting, I would ask everyone present to confirm their attendance. So I'll call out the names of the committee members, and after I call your name, please turn on your microphone and camera and introduce yourselves. So I'll start with Councillor Jim Allen, who is the Deputy Chair.
Councillor Allen's not online, Chair.
Councillor Alison Austin.
That's the same again, Chair.
Councillor Brian Burdis.
And again, Chair.
Councillor Karen Clark.
Hi everyone, Councillor Karen Clark, Long Benton Ward. Thank you.
And Councillor Muriel Green.
Councillor Muriel Green, Wheatslade Ward, hello.
Councillor Anthony McMullen.
Councillor Anthony McMullen, also of Wheatslade Ward.
Councillor Andy Newman.
Councillor Newman's not online, Chair.
Councillor Pat Oliver.
Hi, Pat Oliver, Benton Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Martin Rankin.
Not online, Chair.
Councillor Debbie Cox.
Hi, Councillor Debbie Cox, Collingwood Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Joe Kerwin.
Hi, Councillor Joe Kerwin, Monkseaton North Ward.
Councillor Les Miller.
Councillor Miller's not online, Chair.
Councillor Willie Samuel.
Yes, Councillor Willie Samuel, Councillor for Cullercoats Ward. As explained, I'm trying to get in on my device at the moment, so I'm using my phone, so apologies for the difficulties.
Thank you for making the effort, Councillor Samuel. Mrs. Michelle Ord, sorry.
Not online, Chair.
The Reverend Michael Vine.
Again, not online, Chair.
Mr. Stephen Fallon.
Hello there, I'm Stephen Fallon, Catholic Church representative.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And can I now ask the officers in attendance to introduce yourselves, stating your name and role within the council. Again, when I call your name, please turn your microphone and your camera on and introduce yourself. Janice Gillespie is coming in later, should her other meeting stop. And we'll have Claire Emerson. If Claire could put her camera on, thank you.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Yes, Claire Emerson, Deputy Section 151 Officer.
Thank you, Claire. And Paul Wheeler.
Yes, Chair. Paul Wheeler from Democratic Services.
Thank you, Paul. Is there anyone else present who I may have missed? Michelle Ord is coming in to the meeting, so I will just let Michelle introduce herself to the meeting. Hi, Michelle. You're on.
I'm so sorry I'm late. I've had a few problems with the connection there, but I'm on now.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. You just could turn your camera and your microphone off. That's brilliant. Thank you. And Janice Gillespie has made it, so I'll ask Janice to introduce herself. Thank you. For today's meeting, we must first of all deal with some formalities, apologies, declarations of interest and confirmation of minutes. So the agenda items contain one very particular item and special item of business, and the agenda has been published on the council's website. I'll ask a relevant officer to introduce the item. If we have any apologies first, Paul.
Yes, Chair, we've got Councillor Janet Hunter has put on apologies and Chair. And just to say that Councillor Allen has just joined the meeting as well.
Thank you. And have we any substitute members?
We've got no substitute, Chair.
Chair, can I just say Councillor Rankin has just texted me to say he's unable to get connected at the moment. So can he put his apologies in, please?
Thank you so much. Thanks, Councillor Samuel. And do we have any declarations of interest at all? No. And can I ask the minutes of the last meeting of the 5th of August be approved as a correct record? Could I confirm?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. We will say in terms of etiquette for the meeting, can I just remind everyone they should keep their microphones muted and turn off their video unless they are speaking. And if you wish to speak, if you could raise the little hand or make it known if you can't find the hand button, sometimes it disappears, and just make it known that you would like to speak and we will bring you in. So I'll ask Janice and Claire, I think it may be a double act here to introduce this very important item to do with the budget. And I'll ask members of the committee if they then have any questions and make any comments. Thank you very much. Thank you, Janice.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. We have got a presentation for you this evening, which Claire's going to run through. I guess if I just do a little bit of scene setting. Obviously, we brought the financial planning budget process report forward a month, and I guess that was all part of us trying to improve our approach to the reporting process and the timeliness of those reports. But I guess it's fair to say that we are now implementing a budget process in unprecedented times in terms of us being able to plan very clearly for the next few financial years. So I guess what we're trying to say is, yes, we've got a process. Yes, we've got a medium-term financial strategy and a financial plan, but it is uncertain times. So quite how this will follow through into setting the budget for November and the plans for beyond that, it is particularly challenging and not something I've experienced to quite this degree ever before. Nevertheless, we've got a presentation for you. If I can ask Claire to bring that up, and then I'm happy to take any questions probably at the end of the presentation, if that's okay.
That's fine. Thank you very much. Thank you, Janice.
Can you all see that presentation? I can see it, so I'm hoping that means you can see it.
Yes, can.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. That's good.
Good.
Do you want me to take over?
Yeah, over to you, Claire.
Okay, thank you very much. So, so this is going to go through some of what we've done so far on the budget and financial planning process. The items to be covered this afternoon, or this evening, are obviously what we've done in terms of the medium-term financial plan. We have used a risk-based approach in terms of how we're looking at the medium-term financial plan for 21-22 through to 24-25. We're currently looking at middle case, best case and worst case scenarios across our resources, so for council tax and business rates. But we're also looking at the impact of COVID-19, not only for 2021, but potentially where that might have an impact for future years as well. So what we'll go through is some of the medium-term financial plan assumptions that we've made, and also the risks that are associated with those assumptions, and with, as Janice has just gone into, the level of significant uncertainty that we have at this point in time. So medium-term financial plan assumptions, I don't know if all of you will be aware, but a comprehensive spending review has been announced that will happen this year. And whilst we don't know the detail of that at the moment, we're expecting that will be due late autumn. Initial indications are certainly the response to the comprehensive spending review consultation will be expected by the 26th of September. So we are expecting that between October and November, we might get some indication of what that comprehensive spending review looks like. So that does hinder us somewhat in what we are looking at in terms of the overall medium-term financial plan and some of the figures that we include in our assumptions. But in the main, what we are carrying forward from our rolled forward budget from 2020-21 is that we are assuming that there will be an uplift of 2% in the Improve Better Care Fund. We are also assuming that there will be a 2% uplift applied to the Revenue Support Grant. You might or might not be aware of some of the grants that were announced for 2021 specifically. So of the 1 billion that was announced for social care, the local authority received 4.446 million in terms of the social care grant. So we are assuming that will continue for 21-22. In addition, we've also got 1.761 million, which was part of the winter pressures grant, which we're also assuming will roll forward. Clearly, there are some implications for social care, especially around what's happening now in regards to COVID-19. However, we are assuming on the same basis of planning for 2020 as what we did for 2021 in terms of that now. Obviously, we're still waiting for a green paper in terms of social care planning. So until that happens, we have to go with what we currently know. So that's what we'll be planning ahead for. The pay award is 2%, and that's certainly what we're looking at over the medium-term financial plan. So whilst we have confirmation of the pay award of 2.75% for 2021, we will be looking at applying a 2% pay award for 21-22 to the 24-25. However, that's also a risk because obviously we understand that that might change and obviously our assumptions may not follow through. What we've looked at in terms of council tax, obviously the impact of COVID-19 on council tax growth in terms of the base council tax base. We've modelled different scenarios in terms of best case, middle case, worst case scenarios, and what that looks like in terms of the impact overall of council tax. So we've done that. You'll understand obviously that an impact in terms of the local council tax support scheme and what COVID-19 has had an impact on that. So we've modelled that through. In previous years, we have had a surplus on the council tax element of the collection fund. However, when we're looking at modelling for 21-22 onwards, we're now looking at a collection fund deficit overall, and obviously pending announcements from the government how we deal with that in terms of future years. We understand what that might look like, but again, we're waiting for confirmation in terms of the spending review of how we might deal with that for future years. In terms of risks, so obviously there's risks for 2021. When we set the budget back in February, it was a balanced budget at that point in time, but clearly we've had an impact of COVID-19, and we're still, we've only had 3 tranches of funding in relation to COVID-19 and the impact of that. Clearly, we're reporting the impact of COVID-19 through in budget monitoring. So we've had a budget monitoring report for May. We've also got a budget monitoring report as at the end of July, which will be submitted or is going to September's Cabinet. And we are reporting on a monthly basis of what the impact of COVID-19 will be for this financial year. However, obviously we have to take into account what that impact will be for future years, which there is a significant level of uncertainty around. We currently have a level of budget or a level of grant that will offset some of those costs in relation to income and expenditure, and we still don't have any certainty around whether any of that will be available in future years. So we have to go with what we're currently seeing that's coming through. In terms of achievement of saving targets, what you'll remember or may not remember is that we had £805,000 worth of savings targets that were to be achieved in 2021. Some of those were income related, and obviously we had impacts of savings targets from 18-19 and 19-20, which we also have to look at. So the risks to the budget for 2021 and future years are the achievement of those savings targets. Like I've said before, there is a significant level of uncertainty in terms of the impact of COVID-19. Certainly in respect of demand-led services, so for example children's and adult services, and there's also around worklessness for local council tax support scheme, etc. Those are issues that and what are presenting themselves. We are trying to work through some modelling what that will look like, but clearly we don't have any certainty around that. In terms of an income pressures and level of uncertainty around income, our leisure centres are currently operating at a reduced capacity, as are our cultural services. That will be something that we'll have to take into account for future years. And, whilst government restrictions are in place and social distancing restrictions are in place, it limits our availability to open those services as such to be able to regain a level of impact or service as what we would have expected. So we're currently working through that. Sorry, can you hear my cat meowing?
Lovely, I love it, I love it.
Sorry, I do apologise. So the timing of the comprehensive spending review is not expected until November or December. Sorry, I do apologise.
I've just sent a message out saying the noise is Claire's cat. So don't worry about it.
Sorry, I do apologise. I know this is going live on YouTube, so I do apologise. Right, back to business. So the timing of the comprehensive spending review, obviously, like I've said, we're not due to get that until late November, December. So again, until we get some certainty around that, we are very much working on assumptions, and it is our ability to get those assumptions right as to where we are. We've currently got a business rates consultation, which is due for submission by the 18th of September. That could potentially lead to a business rates reset, and we obviously need to understand what the implications of that would be for 2021 and future years. We currently don't understand, well, not that we don't understand, but we're currently modelling that through, and we need to understand what the implications of that would be, obviously, so that we can get some certainty around our resources. The risks, obviously continuing, like I've said before, pay award, we're currently assuming 2%. Which is, you know, on the basis of, yes, we've had 2.75%, but we need to take example from what's happening across the market elsewhere and what might potentially happen in 21-22. We do have a number of business cases that were brought forward from previous years. So, for example, 18, 19, 19, 20 and 2021, as I explained when I said what we're going to cover and go through. We still need to understand what those impacts are and potentially what that might mean in achievement and non-achievement, which is obviously part of the planning process and what we will include within it. New homes bonus is also an issue for us in terms of we have seen a reduced impact in terms of housing growth. And obviously the scheme for 21-22 has not been announced. So we are still working on the basis of previous planning assumptions in relation to that. Engagement, obviously engagement will be an issue in relation to COVID-19 and social distancing. So any engagement that we do has to be done in a COVID-19 secure way. So certainly the previous engagement around face-to-face, we need to make sure that that is done in a COVID-19 secure way. So in premises that we've obviously got COVID-19 security around, but also making sure that is if it is done online or if it isn't done face-to-face, it needs to be accessible to everybody. So all residents, businesses, etc., who we do engage with need to have that that available to them so that they can take part in the budget planning process. And obviously, once Cabinet have their initial budget proposals, they need to be able to express their views on what that means for the future of North Tyneside, and certainly what it means for planning for 21-22 and future years. So last slide is next steps. So we're currently working on bringing proposals back to Cabinet in September. So currently services are working through, like I've said, the impact of COVID-19, certainly what they're seeing for 2021, but also how that will impact for 21-22 and future years. Not every service, some services may be able to return back to normal, and some services will experience a new normal, and they will have to plan for that. So that's certainly part of what we're looking at for Cabinet in September. We do have the initial budget proposals report that's going to Cabinet on the 30th of November. Again, we'll be bringing proposals forward, and obviously that will be part of the overview and scrutiny process of the budget as it has been in previous years. We'll follow that same process. As part of the report that went into August, the budget timetable was an Appendix B, I think. So you should all be aware of what that is. I think we just need to get dates in the diary around when that will happen. Obviously in January we'll finalise those budget proposals, and then obviously we'll have completed the budget engagement process, which is where overview and scrutiny will be able to take advice from, you know, what they've heard from the outcome of the engagement process, and obviously make their recommendations to Cabinet. We'll then have full council in February, where the budget will be, where Cabinet's budget will be presented to full council. And as I've said before, there's a key date around the timetable, not only on the operational side, but obviously for budget setting per se. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. But obviously I can't stress enough what Janice has kind of alluded to before. We are in unprecedented times. Certainly the level of uncertainty is not something that we've experienced before. So it may be that we don't have, you know, fully costed proposals at a certain point in time, but we are obviously working towards that as we go through the budget proposal and the budget setting process for 21-22. And I'm happy to take any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you very much for that, Claire. I would have thought that budget setting is difficult enough without trying to do it with so many unknowns and things that are yet to come out of the woodwork. And I think you've done a marvellous job to try and explain it to us all in very difficult and challenging circumstances. I just wanted to ask Claire, or Janice, are there any sounds coming out of the Treasury about any further local authority support? I know we've had 3 tranches of money, but we're still in the red, and just wondering if any further support.
There is, yes. So as we're not expecting, or we're not hearing that there's going to be another kind of general allocation, we are expecting support on the loss of fees and charges. So they announced a few weeks ago now that they would have if you like, a compensation scheme for loss of eligible fees and charges. So it's not all fees and charges, where they've set out that the local authority will, if you like, take a hit on the first 5%, then we would share the next 75-25. So we actually take more than a 5% hit. It's something like a 22% hit, I think.
Yeah.
So they issued some guidance probably just a couple of weeks ago now, some more specific guidance, and we have a return to complete by the end of September. And that certainly is going to be a quarterly return process that allows us to claim back some funding. So that should put us in a better position during 2021 in terms of that bottom line impact. We had estimated at Officers something close to 5 million could come back to us. So we're hoping for that kind of number. But that's a one-off. That's not a permanent, that's a one-off. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for that. We've had Andy Newman join the meeting and Brian Burgess, just to let you know. People have had difficulties getting in again. I wonder if Muriel Green could come in. She's got her hand up. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Just to echo what you said about the difficulties and the skills that our officers have in dealing with all of these. One of the things that we often have to do is to explain to the general public some of the messages that we get from, for example, government, who say, well, we're throwing so much more money, we're giving you so much more money this year for such and such a problem. Yeah. And I wondered if you could just, if there was a way of explaining to local residents just how you actually balance this up, because there are some who are thinking we're getting an awful lot of money goes to schools. Now we know schools are having to find their own money for the social distancing projects that they're having to do, and how do you actually balance this up? Are there some easy messages that we can actually explain to people? That's one question. And the second question is about any implications of Brexit. You mentioned Brexit in the risks, but we don't know where we're going on Brexit, do we?
No.
And are there actually any implications should we go out without a deal or have a deal? I don't know. Those are 2 questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
So,
take your hand down, Muriel. Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess the first question around how we help the public understand, certainly for 2021, we should be able to, I guess, share a fairly simple message of what it means currently in year how much cost we've incurred, how much income we've lost, and how much funding we've had from local government. So I don't think there's a particular issue with arriving at a simple picture for this current financial year. I think it's going to be very challenging how we arrive at a simple picture for 21-22, because there's kind of what I call, if you like, the top half of the budget, which is the service implications and the provision of service, vis-a-vis what I call the bottom half, which is our resources, which are the implications for council tax and business rates, and how you explain that actually there are impacts for both sides of the budget that are significant, and helping the public understand that, I do think is going to be really quite challenging, and how we keep that as simple as possible, but understood nevertheless is going to be really quite interesting and difficult. You know, the collection fund is a complex piece of technical accounting as to how we deal with council tax and business rates. So helping the public understand what that all means, it is going to be challenging for us. But nevertheless, we have to find a way to do that. I think in terms of Brexit, who knows? I would say it's that risk factor, another risk factor for us, and potentially an opportunity factor as well in amongst it, because I guess what we don't know at the minute is quite how that's going to play out. So, you know, there's a risk to, I would say, to business rates and quite what the resources side looks like. But then there may be an upside for some of our local businesses. You know, I don't know off the top of my head. So there is a degree of uncertainty with how we estimate what Brexit may bring for us. And we always had that, I guess, that challenge prior to COVID. And what you don't know is the double whammy of COVID and Brexit, just going to be, I guess, a step too far for some of our businesses. So potentially it heightens some of the risk around business rate income, and I guess potentially that whole impact then on jobs and opportunities for our residents. Yeah.
Just to reiterate some of that point that Janice has just said, obviously in terms of schools, I know you mentioned that, Councillor Green, we've been working with schools obviously since COVID-19 has been impacted, or certainly seen the impact of that, and we set up an online form with all schools so they could report through what they thought their impact of COVID-19 was going to be. So initially the government had a scheme, or the DfE had a scheme, where they identified certain things that were going to be covered in terms of COVID-19 expenditure, which was subsequently changed. So the initial estimate, and bearing in mind this wasn't 100% of schools who replied, was that the impact for schools was going to be around about 800,000. The last return that we received back from the DfE around grants that had been agreed was 88,000. So there's a significant difference between, and not all schools' grants have been approved yet, so there may still be some in train, but certainly what we've seen is that, you know, some of what the grant initially covered didn't cover every single aspect of the funding for schools. So like loss of income wasn't covered. It was generally around cleaning costs, etc. within schools. And again, they are going to see that impact for 2021 and potentially some grant funding which will assist with that. But we still have a significant level of uncertainty with schools around how they are going to see that happen in 21-22. So yes, schools is definitely something that we're considering alongside everything else.
Can I come back on that, Chair, in terms of are there messages getting through to the parents? Because I do think this whole issue about how hard a lot of schools have actually tried with the social distancing, we really shouldn't be putting any more pressures on either the teachers or the parents. The most important thing is to get the children back to school, and I would hate to think that there are situations where teachers are beginning to ask parents for more money just to bridge the gap. So are these messages getting out to parents in the same way that perhaps you've given us the sort of messages there.
I can't speak on an individual school's behalf, but I certainly know that obviously, schools are all aware of what they can and can't claim for in terms of additional grant funding and what that would mean for individual schools. Like I say, I can't really comment on the relationship between a school and individual parents in that school, but I wouldn't anticipate that there would be any knock-on effect for individual parents around like supporting a school in that way, and that's not certainly something that the local authority would advise a school did in the first place. Obviously, the school has a delegated budget, they operate within that delegation, and they will be monitoring their COVID-19 costs accordingly and making adjustments as such. And obviously they have some grants that will be offsetting some of that cost. But schools have delegations, so it is really up to the school as to how they deal with that.
Chair, could I ask another question, unless anybody else is actually coming in? I don't see anybody else.
Yeah, so just continue.
Can I go on to the social care, the issues? We're going to see, we haven't had a lot of children who've been referred to children's social care during the last 6 months, but there may be a spike coming now. The children have gone back to school. That's what they're possibly anticipating. And I just wondered how, if there was any signs of additional money coming from either the health authority or the CCG at all in terms of support for social care at the moment. And I know I've got your 4.1 million you've had and the 1.76 million, but I just wondered if there was anything coming from the local health budgets that might be appropriate for social care.
Not that we've been made aware of at this point in time, no.
Okay, straight answer, thank you.
Has anybody got any further questions? Because I can't see any further hands up. And just to say that Councillor Janet Hunter and Councillor Martin Rankin did join the meeting earlier too. Again, a few connection issues. Well, this is the start of our, and Councillor McMullen, thank you. Do come in.
Hopefully I'm appearing. There we go. I note on the document you get as well as the presentation, there was a thing on page 55 about the Financial Resilience Index. Council. Only were higher risks in growth above baseline. What does that mean to us? Should we panic, or is a thing that says that we are a higher risk of financial stress due to growth above baseline?
I guess that what that's reflecting are the pressures in our social care arena. Yeah, so it's about us recognising that that risk around growth in potentially both adults and children above that which we have been planning for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any further questions? Well, this is the beginning of our budget setting process, if you like, and giving us a flavour of the very hard road that we in our offices in particular have to go down to try and set a balanced budget, and the difficulties that we will have in doing that. I think we're all aware, but as we go through the next weeks and months, it may become even more difficult given the Brexit situation on top of that. We're lucky in the case of local authorities can take a long-term view, but even so, in these unprecedented times, it's going to be really tough for us and for our people that we're trying to serve. And given that most of our money goes on older people and young people, there isn't very much left at the bottom. And with less council tax coming in and business rates coming in, it does put us in a very much a financial squeeze situation. I just hope that the fair funding review and the better care fund and all the rest of it does get going, and they do report earlier than early next year, which is proposed. But has anybody got any further comments that they want to make rather than a question? No. What I say is that we will follow this through. It'll be going back to Cabinet with further. Oh, Muriel, you have something else to say?
I just want to reiterate everything you say about the really difficult job that our finance officers have got at the moment, and I do hold every respect for what they're doing, because it must be a nightmare, a real nightmare, not knowing where your next bit of money is going to go from. But I do think that there's been an enormous amount of very constructive initiatives that have taken place within this council, and it's all been constructive, and it's all been for the benefit of local people, and I do think people appreciate it very much. But I just want to, I mean, I'm sure everybody shares it, but to say how very, very much I appreciate the work that the finance officers are doing, because they are the ones that will keep us legal, they keep us on the straight and narrow with finances, and I do have a lot of respect for them. So thank you very much for all you're doing at the moment. Thank you.
Yes, I would reiterate that from the whole of the committee. I think the whole of the committee feels the same way, because it is difficult keeping the ship afloat, if you like. So thank you.
Thank you.
Big team effort.
Yes,
Definitely.
indeed.
Yes,
As ever. Going forward, we've had budget scrutiny groups carried out. We've generally had them sometime in December. Would members be happy to carry out scrutiny in the same way, albeit it will probably be on Teams? If members could just indicate. Thank you, Anthony. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, fine with me.
Yeah.
Live on Teams at the minute.
Yeah, when it works. So I take it by the silence that that people would be happy for us to go forward with budget scrutiny groups. And no doubt this one will be more interesting than others before. We would invite you all to take part at the appropriate time, and Paul would send out invitation to join that in due course. Willie, would you like to say something?
Oops, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just going to say I think the scrutiny process worked quite well. I mean, the new financial regime that the council has, developing the budget and not having quite so many full council meetings to decide at the end worked extremely well. And I think it would be good if this committee actually repeated that view so going into next year, so we don't have any kind of a fuss about process and that sort of thing when we get to the end of the process, the budget process. You know what I mean?
I think the less fuss we have about the process, given the demands on everybody's time at this present time with the pandemic, is to be welcomed, and thank you for that support, Councillor Samuel. Anybody else, anything further to add? Well, if that's the case, so I'd like to thank the officers for attending, and all of you members, and any members of the public who may be watching on the live stream. The next meeting of the Overview Scrutiny and Policy Development Committee will be on the 9th of November at 6 o'clock. So this concludes the meeting for today, and thank you very much indeed. Thank you.